Memphis Police Department announced over the weekend that it was permanently disbanding the specialized unit involved in the death of Tyre Nichols. All 5 officers charged in his death were part of a so-called Scorpion unit. It was created in 2021 to target violent crime. So for more on this, I want to bring in CBS News Chief National Affairs and Justice correspondent Jeff Pegues. So Jeff, the idea of a specialized unit that would just focus on high crime areas makes sense on the surface. It seems like it's an efficient use of officer manpower, but clearly it wasn't working here. What is the Scorpion unit? Why was the group formed?
Well, before this incident, city officials and police department officials would have said that it is working because it was a unit that was intended to bring down crime in Memphis. And from what we've been told, they were seeing results. And this is the kind of unit that uses more aggressive tactics in that, and try not to focus on, of course, what you saw in that video. But this is a unit that was created to use more aggressive tactics in terms of stopping individuals on the street. But the key here is that they have to have probable cause to do so. They have to have a legal reason to do so. So while you're walking this fine line in terms of policing according to the law, you are being trained to be more aggressive because in the eyes of law enforcement and policing, it's the only way to really bring down some of these crime statistics that were going up during the pandemic. Keep in mind, at the height of the pandemic, you had court systems that were closed, you had police departments that weren't always operating at full strength. In fact, you still have that. And so what you had was these crime numbers running up because you had suspects connected to crimes. They weren't being arrested. They weren't being taken off the streets. And they're typically the people who tend to repeat offend. And so these types of Scorpion units, their job was to hyper focus on getting some of those people, the trigger pullers, some of them are called, off the streets. And so, yeah, they were tasked with using more aggressive tactics. Now, the problem becomes what we see in videos like we've been seeing over the last couple of days is that those units tend to develop their own kind of culture. And that's what you saw perhaps playing out on tape there.
Yeah, you know, we just played a sound bite from the police chief, and she sort of consistently expressed outrage about what happened with Tyre Nichols. But we've also seen other people complain about this unit, about being harassed by this unit. What went wrong here? It certainly seems on paper to make sense that if you don't have the staff and the manpower, then focus the energy on the high crime areas. What went wrong with this unit?
Well, that's a good question, and that is something that they will be looking into. There's going to be an internal investigation. Of course, you'll have the criminal investigations playing out, but there will be people, I think, who find that this is a unit that developed its own culture in part, and you had the police chief telling me this in our interview. She said they didn't have, maybe they needed more commanders, for example, and that is a theme throughout policing, is that sometimes when you have incidents like this playing out on body camera, it's because the command staff isn't doing its job or perhaps doesn't even exist in certain circumstances. And so you have a unit like that sort of loses control. And again, you're innocent until proven guilty, but you have a unit that can lose control because they don't have a command staff in place to tell them what to do and what not to do. And so you have these training issues going unaddressed. And typically when we see situations like this, you'll have law enforcement types or former law enforcement types who will tell you that this happens because of a lack of training. And there are some legitimate questions across the country post George Floyd about whether police officers are indeed getting the training that they need. In fact, I've done stories over the last couple of months from police-connected think tanks who believe that there hasn't been adequate training. In fact, what we're seeing post George Floyd is that these officers are being recruited into police departments. Then a lot of the training is being done on the cheap, according to PERF, which is the Police Executive Research Forum, who looked into this issue. While a lot of people have been calling for more training, what we've been seeing actually going into police departments are younger recruits who aren't getting perhaps the training that they need. Now, the officers in Memphis, they had about 6 years experience, so you can't really call them rookies. They are veterans at that point. And so it's going to be important to find out what it was that really went wrong in that unit to cause the officers to react the way that they did.
Yeah, indeed. There's so much to talk about, but sadly, we got to wrap it up here. Jeff, thank you so much.
My pleasure.